Good day everyone, we'll be discussing about Chapter 13, Leadership. Subtopics: the Trait Theory, Behavioral Styles Theory, Classic Styles of Leadership Behavior, the Ohio State Studies, and the University of Michigan Leadership Studies, the Breaks and Mouton'e Managerial Grid, the Situational Theories, Fiddler's Contingency Theory, Path Goal Theory, Hersey and Blanchard Situational Leadership, Role-Making and Attribution Theories, Transactional and Transformational Leadership. Let us know first, what is leadership? Leadership is both a research area and a practical skill encompassing the ability of an individual, group, or organization to lead, influence, or guide other individuals, teams, or entire organizations. Leadership may be considered as the process of influencing the activities of an organized group in its efforts toward goal setting and goal achievement. Stockdale was one of the first people to point out that a person doesn't become an effective leader just because he or she holds certain traits. He argued that a successful leader's characteristics must be relevant to the demands of a leadership situation. This is the specific challenges faced and the abilities, hopes, values, and concerns of the followers. Who is Ralph Stockdale? Ralph Stockdale is a professor emeritus of management science and psychology at Ohio State University. He is internationally known for his research and publications in leadership and organizations. Stockdale became a leader in leadership research with the publication of his first article, Personal Factors Associated with Leadership, a survey of the literature in 1948. In 1974, he authored the Fundamental Handbook of Leadership, a survey of theory and research. He analyzed 163 studies of leadership traits done between 1948 and 1970. Some of the key findings in leadership. Physical characteristics were not important for leadership. High levels of energy contributed to the success of a leader. The age factor showed that leaders showed signs of great achievement from an early age. And since what is evident in them is mainly their traits, this helped the theory further cement its place. Richard Mann, a professor at the University of Michigan, he conducted a study in many findings about leadership, focused on the findings about personality and leadership in small groups. His work earns a place in the history of the trait theory since from his findings, he listed some traits which he saw as important for leadership. Next, the trait theory. The trait theory is one of the oldest theories in existence seeking to describe great leadership. It developed off the great man theory, which was popularized by the Scottish philosopher and teacher Thomas Carlyle in the 1840s. Thomas Carlyle gave lectures on leadership in 1840 and cited highly influential figures of society with both divine and poetic abilities. These include Muhammad, Shakespeare, Napoleon, Cromwell, and Odin. This became very popular and brought to the fore the idea that great leadership was based on certain endowments the leaders had. Stockdale makes public his conclusions of research and analysis. The analysis included work by the other researchers spanning between 1907 and 1947. He compiled many findings from various studies. There were two major conclusions in Stockdale's findings. First, the number of times a trait was investigated was not directly related to its importance for leadership. Second, the traits possessed by a leader must be relevant to the situation in which he is functioning. According to Stockdale, intelligence, alertness, insight, responsibility, initiative, persistence, self-confidence, and sociability were the important traits for leadership. Stockdale's second survey concluded to be important for leadership are achievement, persistence, insight, initiative, self-confidence, responsibility, cooperativeness, tolerance, influence, and sociability. Well, for Richard Mann, he stated that intelligence, masculinity, adjustment, dominance, extroversion, conservatism were the important traits for leadership. The advantages and disadvantages of the trait theory. Advantages. First, it builds on the premise that leaders are distinctive. Second, unlike all other leadership theories, Threat theory boasts a century of research to confirm the approach. Third, threat theory provides benchmarks for identifying leaders. Disadvantages: it's leader-centric and only focuses on the leader, not the follower or the situation. Second, some findings are ambiguous and subjective, leading to the uncertainty in the validity of the approach. Third, much of the threat theory research fails to look at how specific traits influence leadership outcomes, such as performance, productivity, and employee satisfaction. And last, since traits are innate, it becomes unusual for training and development purposes. Next, we have the behavioral styles theory. Main focus is on the behaviors of actual leaders. Determines how various kinds of specific leaders' behavior affect the performance and satisfaction of followers. According to this theory, people can learn to become leaders through teaching and observation. The behavior theory says that anyone who adopts the appropriate behavior can be a good leader. This also refers to those leaders who adopt different leadership styles according to the situation and the development level of their team members. It is an effective way of leadership because it adapts to the team's needs and sets a beneficial balance for the whole organization. Who is Robert Kraekner? Robert Kraekner is a professor emeritus of management at Arizona State University. Prior to joining ASU in 1975, he taught at Eastern Illinois University. He also taught organizational behavior at the American Graduate School of International Management. He is a popular speaker who has addressed a diverse array of audiences worldwide on management topics. The classic styles of leadership behavior by Robert Kraekner are authoritarian, democratic, and the laissez-faire. Authoritarian retains authority and responsibility, assigns people to clearly defined tasks, and communicates downward. This style stresses prompt, methodical, and predictable performance. Democratic delegates much of his or her authority but retains total responsibility. Work is assigned on a group decision-making basis, and communication flows upward and downward. Participation is key for personnel enhancement. Laissez-faire assumes little responsibility and relinquishes authority to the group with little or no problem-solving support. And communication is horizontal among peers. Self-starters thrive in this environment without leader interference. The Ohio State Studies. In 1945, the Bureau of Business Research at Ohio State University initiated a series of studies on leadership. These studies sought to identify independent dimensions of leader behavior. The study started with the premise that no satisfactory definition of leadership existed, and there was no precise indication of the qualities of a good leader. So it sought to define leadership in terms of performance. The Ohio State Studies identified two independent leadership dimensions called the initiating structure and consideration, which meant more or less the same thing as task behavior and relationship behavior of a leader. The initiating structure behavior. The behavior of leaders who define the leader's subordinate role so that everyone knows what is expected. Establish formal lines of communication and determine how tasks will be performed. The initiating structure refers to the extent to which a leader is likely to define the structure, his own role, as well as the roles of subordinates in the search for goal attainment. It includes behavior that attempts to organize work relationships, and goals. The leader characterized as high initiating structure specifies the task to be performed by each member of his group, sets down deadlines, gives directions, and puts pressure on them for its fulfillment. The consideration behavior. The behavior of leaders who are concerned for subordinates and attempt to establish a warm, friendly, and supportive climate. Some of the statements used to measure this factor: by being friendly, treating all group members as his or her equal, looking out for the personal welfare of group members, making him or herself accessible to group members. Consideration refers to the extent to which a leader is likely to have job relationships which are characterized by mutual trust, respect for subordinates, ideas and regard for their feelings. He shows concern for his followers' comfort, well-being, status, and satisfaction. A leader characterized as high in consideration could be described as one who helps subordinates in their personal problems, is friendly and approachable, and treats all subordinates as equals. Hence, leadership behavior can be plotted on two separate axes rather than a single continuum, as shown in the following diagram. The four quadrants in the above figure shows various considerations of initiating structure and consideration. In each quadrant, there is a relative mixture of initiating structure and consideration, and a leader can adopt any one style. Although an early study, this is still often referenced. Notably, the two factors correlate with the people-task division that appears in the other studies and as preferences. The findings of Hayes State leadership studies suggest that effective leaders possess a strong ability to work with others and build a cohesive team that is balanced with the capability to create structure within which activities can be accomplished. The University of Michigan Studies. The Michigan Leadership Studies was a well-known series of leadership studies that commenced at the University of Michigan in the 1950s, intending to identify the principles and types of leadership styles that led to greater productivity and enhanced job satisfaction among workers. In 1940s and early 1950s, Michigan Research Center identified two leadership dimensions: employee-centered behavior, focusing on employees' needs and their relationship; job-centered behavior, focusing on getting the work done. They also identified the three critical characteristics of effective leaders. These are task-oriented behavior, relationship-oriented behavior, and participative leadership. The Michigan Leadership Studies identified the leadership styles that produce the highest employee satisfaction and productivity. The studies categorize leadership styles as either employee orientation, which emphasizes human relations, or production orientation, which focuses on task-oriented activities. The research identified that employee orientation with general supervision produced more favorable results compared to production orientation and direct supervision. Critics contend that the study is limiting as it does not consider all circumstances and types of organizations, leaders, and employees. Next, we have the Blake and Mouton'e Managerial Grid. Managerial Grid, also called as a leadership grid. According to Blake and Mouton'e, the leadership styles can be identified on the basis of managers' concern for people and production, a popular framework for thinking about a leader's task versus person orientation. The Blake-Mouton'e Managerial Grid is based on two behavioral dimensions. First, the concern for people. This is the degree to which a leader considers team members' needs, interests, and areas of personal development when deciding how best to accomplish a task. Second, concern for results. This is the degree to which a leader emphasizes concrete objectives, organizational efficiency, and high productivity when deciding how best to accomplish a task. Blake and Mouton'e define 5 leadership styles based on this, as illustrated in the diagram: the country club, the impoverished, team leader, authority obedience, and last, the middle of the road. Impoverished management, low results, low people. The managers with this leadership style exert minimum effort to get the work done by the subordinates. They have minimal concern for both the people and production, and they function merely to preserve their jobs and seniority. Therefore, the disharmony, dissatisfaction, disorganization arises within the organization. Produce or pairs management, high results, low people, also known as authoritarian or the authority compliance. People in this category believe that their team members are simply means to an end. The team's needs are always secondary to its productivity. The middle of the road management. A middle-of-the-road or status quo, manager tries to balance results and people, but this strategy is not effective as it may sound. Through continual compromise, he fails to inspire high performance and also fails to meet people's needs fully. The result is that his team will likely deliver only mediocre performance. Country club management. The country club or accommodating style of manager is most concerned about her team's members' needs and feelings. She assumes that as long as they are happy and secure, they will work hard. Team management. Team management is the most effective leadership style. It reflects a leader who is passionate about his work and who does the best he can for the people he works with. The Blake and Mouton'e Managerial Grid helps you to think about your leadership style and its effects on your team's productivity and motivation by plotting concern for results against concern for people. The grid highlights how placing too much emphasis on one area at the expense of the other leads to poor results. It also discourages a vague middle-of-the-road compromise. The model proposes that when concern for both people and results are high, employee engagement and productivity will likely be excellent. While the grid does not entirely address the complexity of which leadership style is best, it certainly provides an excellent starting point for thinking about your own performance and for improving your general leadership skills. Next, the situational theories suggest that no single leadership style is best. Instead, it depends on which type of leadership and strategies are best suited to the task. An adaptive leadership style. This strategy encourages leaders to take stock of their team members, weigh the many variables in their workplace, and choose the leadership style that best fits their goals and circumstances. Situational theories is flexible. It adapts to the existing work environment and the needs of the organization. Situational leadership is not based on a specific skill of the leader. Instead, he or she modifies the style of management to suit the requirements of the organization. Situational leadership is the model of choice for organizations around the world that want to do the following: develop people and work groups, establish rapport and to bring out the best in their people, use a common leadership style across all units in an organization, be it local, national, or international. Here are some of the characteristics of the situational leadership style. Insight. The situational leader must be able to understand the needs of the followers, then adjust his or her management style to meet those needs. Flexibility. Situational leaders must be able to move seamlessly from one type of leadership style to another. Trust. The leader must be able to gain his or her followers' trust and confidence. Problem solving. The situational leader must be able to solve problems, such as how to get a job done using the best leadership style available. Coach. The situational leader must be able to evaluate the maturity and competence of the followers and then apply the right strategy to enhance the follower and their personal character. Next, the Fiddler's Contingency Theory. The Fiddler contingency model was created in the mid-1960s by Fred Fiddler, a scientist who studied the personality and characteristics of leaders. The model states that there is no best style of leadership. Instead, a leader's effectiveness is based on the situation. This is the result of two factors, leadership style and the situational favorableness, later called the situational control. The model states that there is no best style of leadership. Instead, a leader's effectiveness is based on the situation. The Fiddler's Contingency Theory. Leader-member relations. This is the level of trust and confidence that your team has in you. A leader who is more trusted and has more influence within the group is in more favorable situation than a leader who is not trusted. Task structure. This refers to the type of task you're doing, clear and structured, or vague and unstructured. Unstructured tasks are tasks where the team and leader have little knowledge of how to achieve them are viewed unfavorably. Leader's position power. This is the amount of power you have to direct a group and provide reward or punishment. The more power you have, the more favorable your situation. Fiddler identifies power as being either strong or weak. Next, the Pascal theory, developed by Robert House, an Ohio State University graduate in 1971 and revised in 1996. Assumes that leaders are flexible and that they can change their style as situations require. The theory proposes two contingency variables, such as environment and follower characteristics that moderate the leader behavior-outcome relationship. The original Pascal theory identifies achievement-oriented, directive, participative, and supportive leader behaviors rooted in four styles. Theory argues that leader will have to engage in different types of leadership behavior depending on the nature and the demands of a particular situation. It is the leader's role to assist employees in attaining goals and to provide the direction and support needed to ensure that their individual goals are in concert or compatible with the organization's goals. The four styles. First, the directive path to clarifying leader behavior refers to situations where the leader lets employees know what is expected of them and tells them how to perform their tasks. The theory argues that this behavior has the most positive effect when the employee's role and task demands are ambiguous and intrinsically satisfying. Second, the achievement-oriented leader behavior refers to situations where the leader sets challenging goals for employees, expects them to perform at their highest level, and shows confidence in their ability to meet this expectation. Occupations in which the achievement motive were most predominant were technical jobs, salespersons, scientists, engineers, and entrepreneurs. Third, the participative leader behavior involves leaders consulting with employees and asking for their suggestions before making a decision. This behavior is predominant when employees are highly personally involved in their work. Last, the supportive leader behavior is directed towards the satisfaction of employees' needs and preferences. The leader shows concern for the employee's psychological well-being. This behavior is especially needed in situations in which tasks or relationships are psychologically or physically distressing. Next, we have the Hersey and Blanchard situational leadership. This theory was first called the life cycle theory of leadership. During the mid-1970s, it was renamed the situational leadership theory, a situational leadership theory that emphasizes followers and their level of maturity. The leader must properly judge and intuitively know followers' maturity level and then use a leadership style that fits the level. Hersey and Blanchard suggested that there are four primary leadership styles. These are telling, selling, participating, and delegating. Telling. In this leadership style, the leader tells people what to do and how to do it. Selling. This style involves more back and forth between leaders and followers. Participating. In this approach, the leader offers less direction and allows members of the group to take a more active role in coming up ideas and making decisions. Delegating. This style is characterized by a less involved, hands-off approach to leadership. Group members tend to make most of the decisions and take most of the responsibility for what happens. Maturity levels. The right style of leadership depends greatly on the maturity of the individuals or groups. Hersey and Blanchard's theory identifies four different levels of maturity, including M1, group members lack the knowledge, skills, and willingness to complete the task. M2, group members are willing and enthusiastic but lack the ability. M3, group members have the skills and capability to complete the task but are unwilling to take responsibility. M4, group members are highly skilled and willing to complete the task. The matching styles and levels. Leadership styles may be matched with maturity levels. The Hersey-Blanchard model suggests that the following leadership styles are the most appropriate for these maturity levels. A more telling style may be necessary at the beginning of a project when followers lack the responsibility or knowledge to work on their own. As subordinates become more experienced and knowledgeable, however, the leader may want to shift into a more delegating approach. This situational model of leadership focuses on flexibility so that leaders are able to adapt according to the needs of their followers and the demands of the situation. The situational approach to leadership also avoids the pitfalls of the single-style approach by recognizing that there are many different ways of dealing with a problem and that leaders need to be able to assess a situation and the maturity levels of subordinates in order to determine what approach will be most effective at any given moment. Situational theories therefore give greater consideration to the complexity of dynamic social situations and the many individuals acting in different roles who will ultimately contribute to the outcome.
Role-making and attribution theories. Let us define first what is role-making. Role-making comprises a set of patterns of behavior, rights, and duties which are temporarily assigned to various persons. Role-making is also a set of expectations that are addressed and communicated to the person who assumes the role. Who is George Grain? Grain George B. was born on August 7, 1937 in Minneapolis. George is the son of Clarence J. and Mary Grain. George was an American psychologist researcher. He is also a member and became the president from 1992 to 1995 and fellow American Psychological Society Member Association Japanese Business Study. He is also one who developed the VDL. What is VDL? VDL, or the vertical dyad linkage, is a theory that deals with the individual dyadic relationships formed between leaders and their subordinates. It is also widely known as the leadership member exchange, or the LMX theory. So the theory states that all relationships between managers and subordinates go through three stages, and these are role-taking, role-making, and routinization. Role-taking. Role-taking occurs when team members first join the group. So in this stage, managers use this time to assess new members in their skills and abilities. Next is the role-making. In role-making, new team members then begin to work on projects and tasks as part of the team. In this stage, managers generally expect that the new team members will work hard, be loyal, and prove trustworthy as they get used to their new role. So the theory says that during this stage, managers sort their new team members into one of two groups. The two groups are in-group and out-group. So in in-group, if team members prove themselves loyal, trustworthy, and skilled, they are put in in-group. And this group is made out of the team members that the manager trusts the most. So the managers give this group most of their attention, providing challenging and interesting work and offering opportunities for additional training and advancement. So this group also gets more one-to-one time with the manager. Often people in this group have a similar personality and work ethic to their manager. While in out-group, if team members betray the trust of the manager or prove that they're unmotivated or incompetent, they are put into the out-group. In this group, work is often restricted and challenging. Out-group members tend to have less access to the manager and often don't receive opportunities for group growth or advancement. Lastly is the routinization. And during this last phase, routines between team members and their managers are established. So in this stage, this is an advancement for the in-group because in-group team members work hard to maintain the good opinion of their managers by showing trust, respect, empathy, patience, and persistence. Who is Martin J. Martinko and William L. Gardner? Martin J. Martinko is a professor of management at the University of Queensland and teaches in the areas of leadership, organizational behavior, philosophy of science, and attribution theory. His research focuses on attribution theory, which he has applied to the areas of motivation, leadership, impression management, whistleblowing, emotions, organizational deviance, abusive supervision, and entitlement. While William L. Gardner, DBA, is the director of the Institute for Leadership Research and the area coordinator for the area of management at Texas Tech University, Rawls College of Business. There are 5 techniques where Gardner and Martinko recommends. First is the screening for resilience. This suggests that the resilience level are formed early in life and are unlikely to change dramatically in the course of normal life events. So in this technique, employers may determine that their organization require a high level of resilience in their employees. Organizations such as hospitals that requires high level of resiliency should try to attract and hire individuals that demonstrate high level of resiliency. The second one is the attributional training. Its accurate and optimistic attributional tendencies can be fostered in other ways, and this can take several forms. One of which is measuring employees' attribution styles with an existing assessment device and discussing their attributional biases with them. The second form of attributional training is less formal, and it involves discussing the causes of employee successes and failures on a case-by-case basis. Third is immunization. Another technique recommended by Mouton'e and Gardner is to immunize against the motivational attributions by enabling successes early in an employee's career or tenure with an organization. Fourth is increasing psychological closeness. Psychology closeness describes the extent to which two or more people form the same perceptions regarding their situation. So, in this technique, to increase psychological closeness between managers and employees, organizations should work to ensure that managers have experience with the work their subordinates perform. And lastly is the multiple raters of performance. So this system is used to help ensure that potential biases among one or more raters can be offset with the accuracy or counteracting biases of other judges. From transactional to transformational leadership. What is a transactional leader? A transactional leader is someone who values order and structure. A transactional leader is also depending on self-motivated people who work well in a structure-directed environment. So they are likely to command military operations, manage large corporations, or lead international projects that require rules and regulations to complete objectives on time to move people and supplies in an organized way. What are the advantages and disadvantages of transactional leadership? Advantages of transactional leadership is that they reward those who are motivated by self-interest to follow instruction, and they most likely achieve short-term goals quickly, and also rewards and penalties are clearly defined for workers. So they also provide an ambiguous structure for large organizations, systems requiring repetitive tasks and infinitely reproducible environments. Advantages of transactional leadership is that they reward the worker only on a practical level, such as money or perks, and creativity is limited since the goals and objectives are already set and they do not reward personal initiative. What is a transformational leader? A transformational leadership is a leadership style in which leaders encourage, inspire, and motivate employees to innovate and create change that will help grow and shape the future successes of the company. They also fosters an ethical work environment with clear values, priorities, and standards, and also provides coaching and mentoring, but allowing employees to make decisions and take ownership of tasks. So transformational leaders inspire and motivate their workforce without micromanaging. They trust trained employees to take authority over decisions in their assigned jobs. What are the advantages and disadvantages of transformational leadership? The advantages of transformational leadership. First, united in a common cause. Transformational leaders stand out in their ability to quickly analyze a company's current situation and create a righteous vision for its improvement and growth. Next, reduces turnover costs. Transformational leadership seeks to lower staff turnover by making people feel more engaged and included in the organization. Next, creates and manages change. For companies to evolve, they must be willing to embrace change. This style of leadership focuses on the positive impact of the change for the greater good, and tells people how they can contribute to it. This makes it much easier for employees to embrace the change and enjoy it. Next is that they keep the company open and ethical. Their entire sphere of influence is based upon them being transparent and openly living the values they have established for the organization. Next, promotes moral through better communication and ethical. Transformational leaders are by definition excellent communicators. Transformational leader articulates the corporate message clearly, reminding people of why they're doing what they're doing and breaking them out of the old routine. And lastly, they give employees a lot of freedom. Workers are valued for their skill and experience and are trusted to perform tasks to the best of their ability. Transformational leaders do not use their position to control others, but to inspire them. The disadvantages of transformational leadership. First, it's too big picture. One of the main weaknesses of transformational leadership is that it's too conceptual and is missing the task focus that some employees need to guide them as they go about their duties. Next, it can lead to employee burnout. This constant push to achieve the grand vision and to continually take pride in the company's achievements can lead to demotivation and burnout in some employees. Next, it can be risky and disruptive. If the leader fails to objectively assess whether this particular change at this time and for this organization is the appropriate response, it is more likely to produce negative outcomes. Next, it carries a high potential for abuse. Sometimes a charismatic leader will stridently follow a vision that is not a force for good. Experts often cite Adolf Hitler and Osama bin Laden as examples of transformational leaders, so there can be a dark side to this style of leadership. Next, it requires a continuous feedback loop. So transformational rely on keeping enthusiasm levels high, and that takes a lot of work and a lot of meetings and feedback. So the second the communication breaks down and an employee feels left out of the loop, then there's a risk that he will lose commitment to the vision. And lastly, leaders lose power if people disagree with them. Transformational leadership relies on employees being intrinsically motivated to work hard. But if those employees are not hearing, feeling, and connecting with the vision, then intrinsically, motivation will be lacking. Here are some of the characteristics of transactional leadership. First is hierarchical. Corporate structure and culture are high on the list of importance in transactional leadership. Everything goes through a proper channel and process. Second one is the micromanaging. In transactional leadership, the day-to-day operations of the business are rigid. All decisions are final from the transactional manager, but the responsibility of goal achievement also lies squarely on their shoulders. Third is the laissez-faire. Transactional leadership doesn't aim to change any of the processes of the company. They want everything to stay exactly as it is within the business, which may seem passive or laissez-faire. Next is practical. Practicality and pragmatism are two of the staples of transactional leadership. They'll make a level-headed decisions based on constraints and available information. This rarely leads to thinking outside the box. So fifth is the motivation by self-interest. Both the employee and the transactional leader have something to gain by hitting their quotas of achieving personal goals. Teamwork is often underappreciated or non-existent. And lastly, reactionary. Due to the importance of the status quo within the business, transactional leaders are rarely proactive. Here are some of the characteristics of transformational leadership. First, keep their ego in check. It is easy to let ego take over when you are in a position of power. However, in transformational leadership, it is important for the leader to keep their ego under control and not let it interfere with the best interest of their team or the organization. Next is the self-management. Transformational leaders typically don't need much direction from others and are able to manage themselves well. Third, the ability to take the right risk. The ability to take calculated risk is a key characteristic of a transformational leader. They trust their instinct and use the intelligence gathered by team members to make informed decisions. Fourth, make difficult decisions. Being a leader is not always smooth sailing. You often have to make tough decisions. Transformational leaders do not shy away from difficult decisions. Fifth, share collective organizational consciousness. This makes them particularly attuned to the feelings of their team members and gives them a clear idea of what actions to take to elicit desired actions from the employees. 6. Inspirational. People seek to be inspired, and transformational leaders are perhaps the most inspiring of all. They have the ability to motivate others to rise to the occasion. 7. Entertain new ideas. A transformational leader makes deliberate efforts to solicit new ideas from the team members and also use their insights in making decisions. 8. Adaptability. The leader knows that it is important to constantly adapt to changing market conditions to keep moving forward. 9. Proactive. These leaders are proactive in their approach. These leaders take risks and take an active role in growing the organization. And lastly, lead with vision. The transformational leaders set a realistic and achievable vision for the organization. They then communicate the vision effectively to their followers and also inspire a sense of commitment and purpose. This table shows the difference between transactional and transformational leaders. In transactional leadership, leadership is responsive, while in transformational leadership, the leadership is proactive. In transactional leadership, they work within the organizational culture, while transformational work to change the organizational culture by implementing new ideas. Transactional leaders make employees achieve organizational objectives through rewards and punishment, while transformational leaders motivate and empower employees to achieve company's objectives by appealing to higher ideas and moral values. So transactional leaders motivate followers by appealing to their own self-interest, while transformational leaders motivates followers by encouraging them to transcend their own interest for those of the group or unit. So basing on this table, it shows that the transactional style of leadership is viewed as insufficient but not bad in developing the maximum leadership potential. It forms as the basis for more mature interactions, but care should be taken by leaders not to practice it exclusively, otherwise it will lead to creation of an environment permeated by position, power, perks, and politics.